Welcome back to our second hour of our study today. This is CMS 32. This is what, August? August. This is April. April something or other. April 18th. That's right. April 18th, 2010, if you're trying to reference where you are when listening to this study. We're going to pick up with slide 34. Ooh, I was supposed to be all the way through about 55 the first hour, so we could have plenty of time for the second hour analysis. So we may not get all the way through it the second hour. We'll see. We may have to pick it up again next hour because I want a lot of input. And knowing how involved you people can be and how much insight you can reveal, we'll probably be done in plenty of time the second hour. But the more you talk, the better it'll be, because this is time to learn. That's how you're going to learn. How do I see this? And you're going to reference it to your behavior or the person sitting next to you. And then you can pick these things out. Most of you will pick the person sitting next to you, but the object of this is to pick yourself and how you fit in these so that you can see your particular hams in action. Let's begin with a moment of silent prayer, the opportunity to utilize 1 John 1:9 if we need to. And 1 John 1:9 states, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. It's a spiritual state needed to be able to understand God's perspective on the Word and the world around us. So please pray if you need to, and we'll do so now. Father, as we look at these things this hour, we ask for the Spirit's help in identifying where they come from in our human happiness attainment motivators, so that we might understand ourselves better, so that we might choose you more. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. We'll pick up with the borderline personality disorder. This is the most common one seen by psychiatrists and psychologists. It is the highest of the suicide rate of the personality disorders. These people can't quiet themselves. They're hungry for love, but they have that, with their hunger for love, they anticipate rejection. They anticipate rejection. They have eating and drinking problems. They're unstable. They're highly needy people. Their drive is, don't abandon me. They cannot stand to be abandoned, but they expect to be abandoned. And because they expect to be abandoned, guess what happens? They invite abandonment. They're emotional vampires. Their feelings lead to thinking, and they're always on the edge of exploding. Okay? So that's the extremes of this strategy, the dysfunctional strategy. But we'll see ourselves in smaller ways in the strategies. And so we understand then that we have a problem in this area in our hams. And when you understand that it's your hams, your human happiness attainment motivators, how you as a human try to be happy, and this is the dysfunctional side, as we said in the first hour, that this is how you get that way with failure to do it with human good, and you, instead of just human bad, you can become dysfunctional in it as well. So let's look at the borderline personality disorder, the BPD. Individuals with this personality disorder behave impulsively, and their relationships, self-image, and emotions are unstable. A pervasive pattern of instability of interpersonal relationships, self-image, and affects, and marked impulsivity. They have frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. A pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation. The person is the greatest thing in the whole wide world, and then they're nothing but scumbags. They have identity disturbance. They're markedly and persistently unstable in their self-image or sense of self. See, they choose to appraise things from a self-image standpoint, and that self-image standpoint is based on other people. Okay? My self-image is established by my relationship with other people. Impulsivity in at least two areas that are potentially self-damaging: spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating. Okay? These are the impulsive areas in their lives. Recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures or threats, or self-mutilating behavior. Affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood. In other words, they have intense episodic dysphoria, irritability, or anxiety, usually lasting a few hours and rarely more than a few days. Chronic feelings of emptiness. Inappropriate, intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. That's frequent displays of temper, constant anger, recurrent physical fights or attacks. Okay. You can think of this person, the one that came to mind with me was the, what was the movie with, was it Glenn Close and Michael Douglas, where he had the affair with her, and Fatal Attraction, yeah. So that's, I mean, if you recall that movie, you can see these things in that character. Transient, stress-related, paranoid ideation or severe dissociative symptoms. Those are the extreme of the borderline personality disorder patient. Borderline personality disorder, Boré says, is so called because of the belief that it represents a personality style that is close to but not quite psychotic. Many of their symptoms, as you can see, suggest that. But I have been impressed by borderline people I have known and their ability to lie and manipulate nearly as well as antisocials. Instead of coming off as powerful, they use their weaknesses to manipulate. And like antisocials, they appear to feel little, if any, empathy or guilt. They pull you towards them, then push you away, then pull you back. They pit one friend against another. In general, people with BPD feel worthless, empty, moody, needy, depressed, and have difficulty managing their emotions. They have trouble with boundaries, both their own and respecting others. They are looking for that all-loving other who will provide the unconditional love they cannot give themselves. BPs often act inconsistently, act impulsively in ways they later regret, see other as either all good or all bad, and base their beliefs on feelings instead of facts. Borderlines are people in pain. Borderline personality disorder people commonly manage their intense pain in two ways. They act in or they act out. BPs who act in may mutilate themselves, make suicide attempts, express self-hate, or seek outpatient or inpatient therapy. Other BPs manage their pain by trying to foist it on others. They blame loved ones for all their problems, criticize, make unfair accusations, act emotionally or physically abusive, put others in no-win situations, and use emotional blackmail to get the love they need. This is a quote from BPD Central. There are a number of websites that are devoted to borderline personality disorder, and they have discussion boards. People who have BPD get on and talk with, email back and forth, post things on the blog. They have psychiatric tips and hints and all kinds of references on those, and one of the good ones is BPD Central. Boré says it this way: they dramatize situations to their own ends. They move chameleon-like from one personality to another. Also, like the antisocials, they are extremely difficult to treat. Possibly they combine some of the issues of antisocial personality disorder with psychoses. Inasmuch as borderlines are predominantly women, it is also possible that they have followed their cultural guidelines as to traditional male-female differences in behavior, and are antisocials who use more passive means of getting their way. So he's associating this very strongly with the antisocial. But it also seems that much of their behavior is self-defeating. There are signs of dissociation that suggest that borderline personality disorder may be related to some degree to multiple personality or even schizophrenia. It is more common in people who have a history of neglect, abuse, family conflict, so both a degree of dissociation and defensive manipulation would be expected. The notes that I'm reading from and did the first hour are from Dennis Marikas, who is a psychologist that Jackie and I attended a seminar on understanding personality disorders a few weeks back, and he had a lot of insights that I thought were quite good. These people do have substance abuse issues also. They have a poor diagnosis when they have had a history of childhood sexual abuse, and of course the longer they have it. It occurs in up to 5% of the population. Their object relations. Others are unpredictable and inconsistent. They have instability in affect regulation, interpersonal relations, self-image and behavior, chronic suicidal ideations, and behavior and self-injury. And there are some treatments for it, but none of them are highly successful. There is one cognitive behavioral therapy approach that he showed us that was quite good, and worked in reducing suicides quite a bit, cut suicides in these people in half based on the research that they had done. The common schema, the way they see things. I am not sure who I am. I will eventually be abandoned. My psychic pain is so intense that I cannot bear it. My anger controls me. I am incapable of modulating my behavior. My feelings control me. I cannot modulate my feelings. He or she is so very, very good that I am so lucky. He or she is so very, very awful that I cannot bear them. When I am overwhelmed, I must escape. So that's the way they feel about life. Next, we go to the histrionic personality disorder. Individuals with this cluster B personality disorder exaggerate their emotions and go to excessive lengths to seek attention. A pervasive pattern of excessive emotionality and attention seeking beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts as indicated by 5 or more of the following. Of course, you can't call people sick if they only have one, so you have to have at least 5 or 4, as we've seen throughout our study of these last week. One, the person is uncomfortable in situations in which he or she is not the center of attention, as opposed to others that they are uncomfortable if they are the center of attention. This person wants to be the center of attention. They're uncomfortable in situations in which, their interaction with others is often characterized by inappropriate sexually seductive or provocative behavior. Displays rapidly shifting and shallow expression of emotions, consistently uses physical appearance to draw attention to themselves. They have a style of speech that is excessively impressionistic and lacking in detail. They show self-dramatization, theatricality, and exaggerated expression of emotion. They are suggestible, easily influenced by others or circumstances, and they consider relationships to be more intimate than they actually are. Boré says, histrionics are the drama queens of the world. I am sure you can think of a few famous actors, especially those who show up in the so-called reality shows, who could be histrionics. Okay? Histrionics, characteristics, they're seductive, flirtatious, rarely enjoy sex. They use it to manipulate others, attention-seeking behavior, center of attention, demand constant reassurance and immediate gratification, rapidly changing shallow moods, quick-witted, pathologically vain individuals. It occurs in up to 2% of the population. Common defenses are repression, regression, conversion, sexualizing, and acting out. And their object relations. Same-sex others are of little value. Opposite sex is a powerful and exciting. Neurobiological finding unknown. Their common schema. Appearances are important. People are judged on external appearance. I must be noticed. I must never be frustrated in life. I must get everything I think that I want. Emotions should be expressed quickly and directly. Beauty is the most important consideration in judging someone. Okay? So that's the way histrionics are. And I'm sure you can recall from some of our previous studies over the years of personalities, styles, how they fit in with them. The narcissistic personality disorder. Individuals with this personality disorder have an excessive sense of how important they are. They demand and expect to be admired and praised by others and are limited in their capacity to appreciate others' perspectives. A pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, a need for admiration and lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts with 5 or more of these. Has a grandiose sense of self-importance. That is, they exaggerate their achievements and talents, expect to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements. Okay? It's, when I played ball as a kid, I was the best baseball player in the entire town. And they really weren't that good. They really weren't that good. But they exaggerate their achievements, their talents, and always talk about how wonderful they are. And it could be just in their fantasies, or it could be in real life. Preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Okay? I am going to be president someday. No, you're not. You have no history in politics. You don't have the personality for it. There's no way you're going to be anything in politics. But they think that they are. They have these fantasies that they're going to be, that they're going to be beautiful. You know, when I lose 25 pounds, I will be gorgeous, and they have all the, and then love. I'm going to find the magic person that's going to. We're going to be Prince Charming and Snow White, and Prince Charming go with Snow White. Who's Prince Charming go with?
Prince Charming and
Snow White. Okay. Mm-hmm. Prince Charming and Snow White, kind of a love in my life. He believes, or he or she believes, that they are special and unique and can only be understood by or associate with other special or high status people or institutions. They require excessive admiration. Can we hear it from me? Okay. Has a sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. You'll do whatever I say because, well, why wouldn't you? Is interpersonally exploitative, takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends. Will use people just unmercifully. And then turn around. I mean, so it's obvious. They don't care that you can see it, that you can see that they have used you. It doesn't matter because it's all about them, and you're just a tool to be used in their advancement to becoming what they see themselves as being. They lack empathy, unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. Often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her. They show arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. Boree says, narcissists seem to be histrionics with more self-confidence. And I personally believe they are just variations of a single disorder that he calls the histrionic narcissist disorder. Their exploitative side does bring to mind a milder version of the antisocial and borderline personality disorders. Common schema of narcissistic: I must have my way in every interaction. I must not be in any way foiled in seeking pleasure or status. I am more special than anyone else. I should only have to relate to people like me. I must be admired. No one should have more of anything than I have. That's the narcissistic personality. The avoidant personality avoids occupational activities that involve significant interpersonal contact because of fears of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. They are unwilling to get involved with people unless they are certain of being liked. They show restraint within intimate relationships because of the fear of being shamed or ridiculed. They are preoccupied with being criticized or rejected in social situations. They are inhibited in new interpersonal situations because of feelings of inadequacy. They view self as socially inept, personally unappealing, or inferior to others. They are unusually reluctant to take personal risks or to engage in any new activities because it might prove embarrassing. Laurie says these are the classic low self-esteem people psychologists so often refer to. Shy and awkward, they may become increasingly withdrawn so as to look more like the schizoid personality. But notice the difference. The schizoid doesn't want relations with others. The avoidant would really like friends, but is too afraid of rejection to try. It is quite difficult to distinguish avoidant personality disorder from social anxiety or even simple shyness. In some cultures, most women and many men behave this way, in which case you could hardly call it a disorder. The avoidant, common object relations. Others who are more powerful can provide safety. They are pathologically shy. They have a fear of being judged and criticized, experience debilitating fear or pain in social situations. They are easily hurt or embarrassed and tend to live lonely, sad, and very routine lives. Their way of thinking, I must be liked. I must not look foolish to myself or others at any time. The world is a dangerous place. I must depend on others to take care of me. All criticism is a massive condemnation. People must offer me unconditional guarantees of acceptance before I commit to the other person. Isolation is preferable to being put at risk of being hurt. Next will be the dependent personality disorder. They have difficulty making everyday decisions without an excessive amount of advice and reassurance from others. They ask you over and over again what they should do. Even after you've told them, they still want to ask you again. They need others to assume responsibility for most major areas of his or her life. Oh, will you take care of that for me? Will you? What should I do when I do this? What should I do when I go there? How should I do this? Should I do this? Has difficulty expressing disagreement with others because of fear of loss of support or approval. Okay? They'll agree with you even if they disagree with you. They have difficulty initiating projects or doing things on his or her own because of a lack of self-confidence in judgment or abilities rather than a lack of motivation or energy. It's not that they don't want to do anything, it's just that they're afraid they'll do it wrong. They go to excessive lengths to obtain nurturance and support from others to the point of volunteering to do things that are unpleasant. They feel uncomfortable or helpless when alone because of exaggerated fears of being unable to care for himself or herself. They urgently seek another relationship as a source of care and support when a close relationship ends. They have to be in a relationship in order to have somebody take care of them. They're unrealistically preoccupied with fears of being left to take care of themselves. I cannot function without the support of others. Without the advice and reassurance of others, I cannot exist. In any situation, I am probably wrong. Their anger expression, people will abandon me. If I am abandoned, I will be destroyed. I must keep people near me. If I am abandoned, I will be destroyed. I must keep people near me. If I am alone, I may be hurt. They just need to be taken care of. They're very submissive. Boree says, you can see the dependent personality as an avoidant personality with a little more gumption. Just enough to get other people to help him or her. Again, it's my opinion, he says, that dependent and avoidant are variations of a single disorder, perhaps dependent avoidant disorder. Also, like the avoidant personality, many cultures, especially sociocentric ones, encourage a degree of dependency. The fact that this disorder is the most commonly diagnosed personality disorder and that it is predominantly diagnosed in women supports the idea that this may be cultural. Sure. I mean, everything is in the hams is defined by culture, with, of course, the theological basis in those cultures. One of the classic situations where we find dependent personalities is in marriages, where one partner allows the other to completely dominate the relationship. Sadly, many people in abusive relationships get into them because of their desperation for someone to take over their lives for them. So then they end up with someone who wants to dominate the other person, and then they're both happy, but they're both miserable. OC personality disorder, obsessive compulsive. So they sacrifice openness, spontaneity, and flexibility to pursue orderliness, control, and perfectionism. Can we do this without laughing this time, please? Without pointing fingers, without naming names. A pervasive pattern of preoccupation with orderliness, perfectionism, and mental and interpersonal control at the expense of flexibility, openness, and efficiency. They are preoccupied with details, rules, lists, order, organization, or schedules to the extent that the major point of the activity is lost. They show perfectionism that interferes with task completion. They're unable to complete a project because of their own overly strict standards are not met. They can't get it done because it's not perfect. They're excessively devoted to work and productivity to the exclusion of leisure activities and friendships. They're over-conscientious, scrupulous, and inflexible about matters of morality, ethics, or values. They're unable to discard worn-out or worthless objects even when they have no sentimental value because you might need them someday. They're reluctant to delegate tasks or to work with others unless they submit to exactly his or her way of doing things. They adopt a miserly spending style towards self and others. Money is viewed as something to be hoarded for future catastrophes. They show rigidity and stubbornness. Most often when we say some acquaintance is obsessive compulsive, we don't mean they have OCD. We mean they have obsessive compulsive personality disorder. These are the perfectionists among us, not the ones who simply want to do their best, but the ones who panic when things aren't perfect. This kind of perfectionism can work in one's favor. Many professors have at least a degree of obsessive compulsiveness, and it seems to be a requirement for medical degrees. In some cultures, for example, in some parts of Asia, this kind of behavior is to some extent expected of everyone. They are preoccupied with orderliness, perfection, mental and interpersonal control. There are strict rules in life, they believe. By focusing on the details of a situation, one will reduce the chances of making errors. A person is defined by what they do. The better the job you do, the better person you are. Rules must be adhered to without alteration. Never discard anything that may be of some value. Emotions must be controlled. All right, those are the major disorders. Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more quote here. Unfortunately, obsessive compulsives often exhaust themselves. Some also exhaust everyone around them, such as in the case of office dictators who believe everyone else must adhere to their impossible standards. Obsessive compulsive personality is more common among men than women and is often found in fundamentalist groups of any religion where strict rule adherence is paramount. In some societies, especially hierarchical versus egalitarian and sociocentric versus egocentric, this kind of behavior is considered normal, not pathological. All right, now we're going to look at these without their names, and you're going to tell me if it's a C, R, A, M, P, or S factor. And remember that there are frequently more than one correct answer. One will be dominant, then there will be variations. You see, when we have, let's go back a slide here to the blank slide. Let's just pick chemical as our example. But off from that, you have the opportunity to pick from the other 5. You're not restricted to just one happiness attainment motivator in any given situation. You can have 2, maybe even 3. We'll see some that there are 3 aspects of the hams in the scriptures here that we're using. So a chemical person might have some religious aspects to it, or approbation, or materialism, power, or sexuality. So understand that just because you are afraid of getting it wrong, that we can immediately identify you as a person who has a personality disorder. So speak up and let's see what you find. Suspects without sufficient basis that others are exploiting, harming, or deceiving him or her.
Chemical.
Why is it chemical?
Well, a lot of people who are on drugs are always think that somebody's out to get them, find them, harm them.
Okay, so they could be on drugs. Okay. What do you say? Approbation. Yeah. And tell me why it's power.
Because if they think someone else is exploiting, harming, or deceiving them, they would rather be in control of that.
They need the lack of control. Okay. And you said chemical. Yeah, they could be on drugs. It's not, I don't think it's really a chemical issue. I think being on drugs, I mean, you could say that this person could be a religious, could be a preacher and have these feelings, but that wouldn't make it religious. I don't think that chemical makes, that being on drugs.
The wrong answer, so you're out to get me.
Oh, you're coming up soon. Okay. And I deceived you.
Me in front of everybody.
That might be a result of chemical abuse.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
might be
what
a
I was
result of
thinking
chemical
more
abuse,
of,
right,
because
yeah.
a lot of people are paranoid when they're on drugs.
Sure, yeah. All right, number 2 is preoccupied with unjustified thoughts about the loyalty or trustworthiness of friends or associates.
Well, I'm not answering this.
Power.
Approbation, power, okay. Reluctant to confide in others because of unwarranted fear that the information will be used maliciously against him or her. Power. Could have a little approbation in it. Yeah. And remember, I told you that because these things, because the hams are essentially culturally determined, that there's an approbation override on a great many of them. Reads hidden demeaning or threatening meanings into benign remarks or events. Reads hidden meaning or demeaning or threatening. Power, yes. They're attacking my power. Persistently bears grudges, is unforgiving of insults, injuries, or slights. Power and approbation. If you don't love me, I'll get even with you. Okay? I need that love, and if I'm not getting it, then I'm going to get even. Right? Perceives attacks on his or her character or reputation that are not apparent to others and is quick to react angrily or to counterattack. Power, approbation. Yeah. Anything else?
Could it be religious with it being character?
Good. Yeah, you see, a lot of these will have a religious, and we have to get out of the idea of religion as organized religion, but your belief system. You see, if you're attacking my character, you're attacking my basic belief system of how I think I should live. So that you'll get the religious there. Has recurrent suspicions without justification regarding fidelity of spouse or sexual partner. Approbation mixed with a little sexual there. Okay. Neither desires nor enjoys close relationships, including being part of a family. Approbation. They have rejected. Oops. Move up here. Yeah. But I won't want to tell you. I don't want to give it away. Right? Approbation. Okay? Remember, these are the dysfunctional strategy. So by dysfunctional, they don't want close relationships. Why? It's failed for them. It did not bring them happiness. And so they reject it. This is dysfunctional. They have rejected the idea that they can be happy with other people, that other people can make them happy. So they reject that, and so it's dysfunctional. They don't want it. Okay? They really do want it, but they have chosen a dysfunctional approach to it. And guess what? These kind of people will hang out together. Yeah? They'll kind of hang out together. They become members of gangs and stuff, for example. That's not all. I mean, not all gang members are like this. But they've rejected the good approbation, and in rejecting that, they say they don't need it, but they hang out together with other people that don't need it.
Which in a sense would give them a sense of power over their own lives as well, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, by rejecting the approbation, it gives them, there's also a power element.
Sure. Yeah, you have power to reject. You know, you've got to have power to say no. Yeah, can't be controlled. You're not going to influence me. I'm going to do what I want. Almost always chooses solitary activities. Again, they're trying to stay away from being rejected. All these people filter by self-concept. Self-concept is the primary filter. Did I miss something?
You said sexual.
Oh. Okay. That's a good one. I won't bring it up. Has little, if any, interest in having sexual experiences with another person. Has little, if any, interest in having sexual experiences with another person.
Could that be religious?
They may adopt some kind of a religious thing to justify that, but it's really more about the approbation. These are paranoid people.
Thinking about all the bad teaching that kids get in their youth groups about abstaining from sex because they're going to get pregnant.
Well, but that would be more cultural than it would be a dysfunctional kind of thing. These are more dysfunctional. So you know, of course, that all approbation people filter with self-concept. And it's either my analysis of myself or other people's analysis of me that make up their self-concept filtering. Takes pleasure in few, if any, activities. You pretty much power, pretty much approbation. They don't need to be accepted by anybody because they don't feel like they are accepted by anybody. And so they choose to reject activities. Remember, they often only are involved in solitary kind of activities too when they have this. Lacks close friends or confidants other than first-degree relatives. Approbation.
Would there be a power in that one also? Saying
Well,
control of it and not going to get rejected? Or?
Yeah, but their rejection is related to their approbation, so not so much their power. They appear indifferent to the praise or criticism of others. They don't want to let on that approbation is a big issue to them. So they thought, oh, that's nothing. You know, they minimize it because they don't want people to know that they don't feel that they have approbation, and they are choosing to try to reject it as an issue in their lives. They show emotion. Go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? I don't know that it applies here. Take somebody like Paul, who matures to the extent that intimacy with another person just doesn't come close to the intimacy with God, and so he never marries.
Mhm.
Is that
No, that's a spiritual. That's the exact opposite. That's a spiritual. Yeah, that's a spiritual issue as opposed to a dysfunctional human issue. The question was, what about someone like Paul, who has matured to the level that he has no real interest in relationships with people, like a wife or something like that, because of the strong relationship he has with God. That's spiritual as opposed to dysfunctional. That's in the right way. Okay. That's the what we should have is that we are focused alone on the Lord, that He is our satisfaction in life.
And he still has relationships, just not maybe in an intimate way.
Right? Yeah. He would have relationships with other people, of course, tens of thousands of people, but not intimate relationships.
Actually, these people as not wanting to have friends.
Right. Yeah. These people are just rejecting all of that. They show emotional coldness, detachment, or flattened affectivity. Why do they do that? Protect themselves, right? And what are they protecting themselves about? Approval, power. They don't want anybody to be able to control them, so they try to be emotionless and be out of it. Getting a pattern here, aren't we? Ideas of reference. Ideas of reference involve the belief that casual events, people's remarks, etc., are referring to oneself when in fact they aren't. Approbation. Pretty amazing how much of the personality disorders relate to approbation, isn't it? Odd beliefs or magical thinking that influences behavior and is inconsistent with subcultural norms, superstitiousness, belief in clairvoyance, telepathy, sixth sense, fantasies, preoccupations. Religious. Huh? They are very belief-oriented, trying to escape through the belief orientation that they have. Unusual perceptual experiences, including bodily illusions. I think that this is pretty much a chemical issue, not necessarily drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing. I think that they may have true chemical imbalances here. You don't really get this kind of thing because of bad choices. It's pretty much, I think this is a true medical condition here. Others that we cover may have some medical aspects to them. There may be some chemical issues, brain neurology, neurobiochemical issues. But I think this is a true medical condition here. I think it's bad chemistry in their brain.
Those people that God takes them to another place.
Yeah, they can. I mean, they can be, but I think that those are kind of secondary to the fact that they have chemical imbalances, brain damage, brain chemistry problems that really causes that. But yeah, you might have some religious in there. Odd thinking in speech, vague, circumstantial, metaphorical, over-elaborate. They're usually trying to do what? They're trying to impress people. Or they're trying to exert control over people. Right? They want to control the group. Suspiciousness or paranoid ideation. They're very, very paranoid about things, and you are out to get them or you're out to hurt them. Okay? Inappropriate or constricted affect, and that's how they display their emotions. Again, they're guarding themselves from revealing themselves because they don't think that you're going to like them. Approbation has failed for them. They don't get people to like them. So if I don't get people to like me, I'm not going to try. I'm going to reject people liking me as a means. Because these are dysfunctional. Remember, these aren't people trying to. They're people who are not able to, so they reject it and they react against it. Behavior or appearance that is odd, eccentric, or peculiar. If you remember from when we studied the Enneagram, those were the type 4s who wanted to be accepted for what they are because they couldn't be accepted based on the culture standard. Now remember when we talked about the Enneagram, the type 2 was the type that was tried to have people like them because they did things for you. The pleaser, okay? The servant type. The type 3 was the type that wanted your approval because they were the epitome of success in whatever area it was. They were the epitome of success. And the 4s were the types that I'm not the epitome of success. I'm different, unique, unusual. You should love me for what I am, for how bad things are in my life. I have a terrible life, but you should coddle me and you should treat me special because I am that way. And they're the ones that would always dress very uniquely and eccentrically, goth, things like that. And it's about approbation. I don't need you is what that says. I don't need you. I'm in the dysfunctional. In the type 4, they want you to. Type 4 fails to get you to do that, to get you to appreciate them, love them, because they are different. Then they can go into this kind of eccentricity. I don't want you to. I'm telling you, I'm trying to keep you from liking me. That's why teenagers, many of them, dress and decorate in ways that are reprehensible to their parents because they're trying to say, I don't need you to like me. I don't like you and I don't want you to like me. Okay? Lack of close friends or confidants other than first-degree relatives. Approbation again. They just don't want people around who might show rejection. They fear rejection. Excessive social anxiety that doesn't diminish with familiarity tends to be associated with paranoid fears rather than negative judgments about self. Okay? You're going to reject me. It's all about rejection when they are that way. Failure to conform to social norms with respect to lawful behaviors is indicated by repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest. Here we finally get some other ones besides the A. Okay? And there's sometimes some A in there as well. But this is about power, materialism. Okay? They want things, and they'll do whatever they have to do to get them. They have deceitfulness, as indicated by repeated lying, use of aliases, conning others for personal profit or pleasure. I mean, these are the slick con artists. Materialism, power. Huh? Oh, Raising Arizona, okay.
Does that have anything to do with their belief system too?
Well, it's oftentimes it's a rejection of the society's norms for right and wrong, which would be, a standard based on religious belief, yes. Impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. I don't even know that that's a dysfunction in the area of hams. It's just personality, more of just a personality quirk here, that they're like that. It's not, does it relate to chemical, religious, approbation, materialism, power, or sex? No, that's just an approach to life as opposed to an issue with the hams. Irritability and aggressiveness is indicated by repeated physical fights or assaults. Power, rejection of approbation. They kind of replace approbation. I don't care if I'm liked. I'd rather beat somebody up. I'll just, people don't like me. I'm going to give you a reason not to like me. So it's a big power issue. Okay, well, we don't have much time left, and we've got 17 more slides. Reckless disregard for safety of self or others. Power. Power. Consistent irresponsibility is indicated by repeated failure to sustain consistent work behavior or honor financial implications or obligations. Okay? Power and material. Power and materialism. I can get even in one way or another. The lack of remorse is indicated by being indifferent to or rationalizing having hurt, mistreated, or stolen from another. Power. Huh? Well, I mean, they don't care about whether people like them or not, respect them or not. So you could put approbation in there. Yeah.
Depending on what type of hurt or mistreated, it can be sexual as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could have people that had a sexual side that would do this as well. All right. Frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. All right. When fears of abandonment seem to be confirmed, they may erupt into a rage, make accusations, sob, seek revenge, mutilate themselves, have an affair, or do any number of destructive things. What's the basis of approbation? If you abandon me, you don't love me. Pardon me? Well, yeah. I mean, sure. Yeah. Yeah, approbation and power go together a lot, and you'll see approbation and sex go together a lot too. A pattern of unstable, intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation. Approbation. Identity disturbance, markedly and persistently unstable self-image or sense of self. Yeah, big approbation. Impulsivity in areas that are potentially self-damaging. Spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating. What are those? Yep. Recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures or threats, or self-mutilating behavior. Approbation, power, big ones. Affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood. They're irritable, anxious. This can be a brain chemistry issue as well, but it could be related to approbation. Could be. But I think it's mostly a chemical kind of issue, that their chemistry is off. Chronic feelings of emptiness. Approbation. I'm not fulfilled. You haven't fulfilled me. Nobody fulfills me. My life is empty. Inappropriate, intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. Physical fights. Power issue. I'm not in control of me, so I'm going to be in control of you. Transient stress-related paranoid ideation or severe dissociative symptoms. Predominantly, you can think in terms of the paranoia. People are out to get me. Approbation and power. Have you ever arrived at home from work without remembering how you got there? You've traveled the route so many times that your brain had its own little adventure while your eyes and reflexes do the driving. This out-of-it feeling is a mild type of dissociation. Okay? That's what they're talking about when they talk about dissociative symptoms. People who are severely dissociating, however, feel unreal, strange, numb, or detached. They may or may not remember exactly what happened while they were gone. The degree of dissociation can vary from the car trip home variety to the extreme dissociation characterized by multiple personality disorder, now called dissociative identity disorder. And I think this is a true medical condition here. These people have severe brain chemistry imbalances, more so than a bad reaction to their happiness motivators. Uncomfortable in situations when you're not the center of attention. Approbation. But we get some new ones in this one. Interaction with others is often characterized by inappropriate, sexually seductive, or provocative behavior. You will like me if I have to force myself on you. See? Display rapidly shifting and shallow expression of emotions. They don't want to reveal too much. They're afraid to give too much information. They just want you to focus on how wonderful they look, and so they don't want a lot of other issues involved. Consistently uses physical appearance to draw attention to themselves. Approbation in sex. Has a style of speech that is excessively impressionistic and lacking in detail. That's kind of an approach to life, but it's also, of course, in these people, approbation in sex. Shows self-dramatization, theatricality, and exaggerated expression of emotion. Approbation, power, because they're going to manipulate. And of course, there's always sex involved with these people. Though, the thing is, I've researched sex, the sexual happiness attainment motivators. It's so often parts of other things. So often parts of power, like a rapist. It's more of a power issue with a rapist than it is sex itself. With the histrionic personality disorder like this, it's more a part of approbation than it is just plain sex. So the sexual kind of relates to other things too. Of course, then you get prostitutes. That's materialism. They can get paid for it. And that's a power thing as well, and an approbation thing with them. So kind of sex is intertwined with a lot of others. There are people that it's just pure sex, that they are sex motivated. They're suggestible, easily influenced by others or circumstances. Approbation, power. I'm not going to be in control. I'm just going to let other people control me. Consider relationships to be more intimate than they actually are. That's approbation, and you might put something else with that, but it's predominantly approbation. Grandiose sense of self-importance, exaggerating their achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements. Well, this is approbation, but you can have with that religious, materialism, power, or sex. Okay? They kind of cover the gamut. They want to be recognized in every area as superior. Every area. Doesn't matter. Preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, and love. So here we go backwards. Love, approbation, power, materialism. Right? They just want whatever. This is the narcissistic personality disorder. They're special and unique and can only be understood or associate with other people, and it's not the common person. It's the big shots, okay, that do it. Approbation, power. Requires excessive admiration. That's pretty much just straightforward approbation. That's the 3, type 3 in the Enneagram, the person that wants to be respected, wants to be idolized for their achievements, success, riches, whatever it happens to be. And that could happen in any area. Like I say, that could be in religious, materialism, power, or sex. But You'll see actors, actresses that have this with sex. You'll see politicians with power. You'll see businessmen with materialism. You'll see people who have the religious aspect tied in with it. But it's essentially about approbation. Sense of entitlement, favorable treatment, automatic compliance, power and approbation. Interpersonally exploitative, takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own needs, power and approbation. Lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. What are they? Rejection of, well, no, they still want the approbation, but they care nothing about other people.
It's failed them.
So, I mean, no, these people are truly so in love with themselves, they don't care about you. No. And
I don't care about you, I wanna get what I want,
yep,
power.
yep. And their system of belief is that I'm God. Okay? I'm God. You should worship me. I don't care anything about you. I'm God. I should be number one. Often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her. Approbation. Perhaps materialism, perhaps sexual. Depends on what the area of envy might be. But it's basically approbation. Shows arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. Approbation, but maybe some power in there as well. Some religious. Avoids occupational activities that involve significant interpersonal contact because of fears of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. Their self-concept is really bad. They don't have any influence on people. Unwilling to get involved with people unless certain of being liked. That's pretty well straightforward approbation, isn't it? Shows restraint within intimate relationships because of fear of being shamed or ridiculed. These are the people who've been married for 40 years and she still gets undressed in the closet in the dark. She don't want to be shamed or ridiculed because she might in their intimate relationships. 4 is preoccupied with being criticized or rejected in social situations. These are pretty much approbation people. Inhibited in new interpersonal situations because of a feeling of inadequacy. Approbation and power. Views self as socially inept, personally unappealing, or inferior to others. I'm no good. Everybody else is good. I'm no good. I can't do anything right. Unusually reluctant to take personal risks or to engage in any new activities because they may prove embarrassing. People may not respect me. I have no abilities. But really, this is not so much about what they do, but what people think, more so than some of the others. You know, they socially inept. I don't have any abilities. This is more that it's not because of the risks of not being able to do it, but because it may prove embarrassing more. So more approbation. Difficulty making everyday decisions without an excessive amount of advice and reassurance from others. You've got to take care of me. I need to be babied, loved. Approbation, and I have no power. Needs others to assume responsibilities for most major areas of his or her life. I have no power. I need you. Difficulty expressing disagreement with others because of a fear of loss of support or approval. Approbation. Difficulty initiating projects or doing some things on his or her own because of a lack of self-confidence in judgment rather than abilities. Or judgment or abilities rather than a lack of motivation or energy. So that's, and lack of self-confidence in judgment or abilities. All right, how are we doing? We're getting close. Oh my, we're over an hour here. Goes to excessive lengths to obtain nurturance and support from others to the point of volunteering for things that are unpleasant. I'll do it just so people will What's that? Like me. Uncomfortable or helpless when alone because of exaggerated fears of being unable to care for himself or others. Okay? Power over my life. Urgently seeks another relationship as a source of care and support when a close relationship ends. It's a power issue, but approbation because they need that power from someone else, but it's power predominantly. Unrealistically preoccupied with fears of being left to take care of himself or herself. Power. I have no abilities to take care of myself. The only reason that they need people is because they can't do it themselves. So it's not really approbation as the primary motivation. Approbation is a tactic to help them with their power issue. Preoccupied with details, rules, lists, order, organization, or schedules to the extent that the major point of the activity is lost. Power. Power. Shows perfectionism that interferes with task completion. Huh? Religious. Perfectionism is always a religious thing. Perfectionism is always a religious thing. It's got to be done right. There is truth. There is right. There is perfect. And we've got to attain it. So these are going to be the most religious of people in the personality disorders. Excessively devoted to work and productivity to the exclusion of leisure activities and friendships. All right. Pardon me? More of power in this case, because it's not, the work and productivity isn't necessarily a right, perfect kind of thing. I mean, but there's always some religious aspect in here because it's got to be done right. And right doesn't mean necessarily it's going to come out right, but it's that you followed all the right steps, all the rules. Over-conscientious, scrupulous, and inflexible about matters of morality, ethics, or values. Religious, right. Unable to discard worn out or worthless objects even when they have no sentimental value. That's called common sense. I mean, that's really a materialism issue there. That you've got to hoard, you've got to keep things because you might need them. And it is the right thing to do. Right? So it's part of the everything has to be perfect, and you can't have a perfect world if you don't have everything that you need. And everything you need is everything that you've ever owned, because you might need it again someday. Probably the day after you throw it out, right? Yeah. Reluctant to delegate tasks or to work with others unless they submit to exactly his or her way of doing things. And it's got to be done right. Don't give it to somebody else because they'll mess it up. It has to be done my way. Adopts a miserly spending style toward both self and others. Money is viewed as something to be hoarded for future catastrophes. Materialism with power. And of course that religious belief that everything has to be, you have to plan ahead. Okay? You have to plan ahead. Everything has to be perfect. Therefore, the future has to be perfect. In order for the future to be perfect, you have to have every resource that you could need available. Okay, like 10,000 rounds of ammunition, 50 guns, food stored, food storage, everything you could possibly need. That's a belief system that things have to be done right. And doing right means taking care of yourself and others in the future. So that's part of that religious viewpoint. Shows rigidity and stubbornness. Power. Next week, something else. All right, you're starting to see? Now, what have you learned is the most common reason for personality disorders? Approbation. Approbation. People want to be loved. Love makes the world go round. Love is what I need. All I need is love. It's all about approbation is the number one need for people not feeling like they're getting it and therefore reacting in some way. Reacting badly in some way with a dysfunctional approach to life because they're not getting the approbation that they desire, or to try to get the approbation they desire. They either seek it beyond reasonable means, or they reject it in some way. All right, well, let's go ahead and close, and then we'll resume next week with some other interesting aspects of our human existence. Father, we're grateful for our study today. We're grateful that we have the lifestyle of the reservoir of righteousness, the spiritual nature that we have been born with, so that we can rise above the humanness that we see in these dysfunctional approaches to life. We thank you that we see them, and we can see in ourselves some of them that give us clues about our area of dysfunction, whether it be power, materialism, sexual, religious, approbation, or chemical. We see that there are areas in our own life that tend to fit into one of those hams. And as we see them, we ask that the Spirit show us the righteousness alternative so that we might experience your righteousness, your peace, and your joy as we go through this life, and thereby become a light to those around us who are stuck in these things and need help themselves. We thank you for it all in Jesus'